What's going on, Boulder, Colorado? We got a special episode for you all. We have TJ from over at College Football Addiction. We're going to talk some Buffalo football, talk about some Coach Prime, and man, how great this team is doing. So go check him out over there at College Football Addiction. TJ, how's it going today, my man?
Man, I'm good. It stinks how fast this season is flying by. Just 4 games left, a month left of the season, but it's been a lot of fun.
It has been, especially for Buffs fans. If you've all noticed, the Colorado Buffs have been doing good stuff. 6-2 so far in the drive on a 2-game winning streak, won 5 of the last 6, and almost in the driver's seat to push for the Big 12 championship game. So, TJ, I want to talk to you about this season for the Buffs. Kind of get your thoughts. With Colorado now bowl eligible, how surprised were you that they actually made it there?
Well, I thought they would get bowl eligible. I just don't know if I thought it would happen this quickly. We've kind of picked, them to win at least 6, 7+ games. And then if things really broke the right way, thought that they could maybe even challenge for that 8, 9 range. And that's kind of where they're at right now. They certainly could get to 10 if they went out, but I'm not necessarily surprised that they are bowl eligible, but I will say I'm a little surprised that they were able to do it this quickly. It's tough to win week in and week out in conference, and they've found a way to do that. Though the one loss to a really good Kansas State team in conference is, frustrating because you had a chance with like 3 minutes left, but not necessarily like shocking. Like, I don't think anybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Colorado dropped that game. And then to never lose again in conference and be favored in the rest of their games. They're going to be favored every single week for the rest of the year, which is a different kind of expectations that they now have. But yeah, probably a little bit surprised that it happened this quickly, but not necessarily surprised it happened overall. Like, I expected them to go to a bowl this year and compete for a little bit more than just trying to fight for that. But yeah, it happened quicker than I think any of us thought.
Yeah, and I know what you're looking at the national landscape. I think the one thing about Colorado and them doing it in a very much unconventional way, they're 2 years in a row they led the nation in transfers. So they had all these transfers coming in and out, but I think the saving grace to me for them was they had your cornerstone quarterback already. So you had the quarterback, which is probably the most critical position. Correction, it is the most critical position to have. But I think the other thing that's amazing for Colorado is that offensive line has held up well. Jordan Seaton is sitting there is like the highest graded true freshman offensive lineman in the country right now, going through 8 games. How surprising is it that this offensive line was able to gel this fast in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things really benefited them. Getting Seaton was a massive deal, obviously. Like, it doesn't surprise me that he's been the best true freshman because he was the best tackle coming out of high school. And so Coach Prime landing him, as big as they were in the portal, getting that kind of cornerstone offensive line piece, that a guy who looks like he is going to be in the NFL as a first-round draft pick in a couple of years was huge for Coach Prime. And then also just kind of retooling it. Like, they knew that they had to go back to the drawing board. He made no bones about that. And they went out and found guys that kind of fit the system, buy into what they want to do. They had healthy competition in spring and fall, and they, obviously retooled that line. You've got games where Shedeur's getting sacked 1 time a game. You'll take that all year, right? And so, like, I think that's a big deal. It's obviously why they've been able to have more success. They had the horses last year at the skill positions, and they've even upgraded those skill positions this year, to another level. But they had the skill guys last year. The problem was they just had no time. Shedeur was on his back or hurt or just not necessarily able to get anything out and going because the offensive line was so poor. And so, yeah, I mean, Seaton was a massive addition. He's so talented. There's a reason he was the best tackle in the country coming out of high school. And then they really did. They plugged and played, and they portaled guys to really rebuild that O-line, and it's what's made the difference on the team. There's a lot of guys that have stepped up and done better, but none of that would matter if you didn't have time to throw the ball or get some passes out from Shedeur.
We're talking with TJ from over at College Football Addiction. Thanks again for pulling up, my man. Let's talk about the run game. So Colorado and awards here. I dropped a video not too long ago. Travis Hunter gets Offensive Player of the Week for the Big 12. He's the first player in Big 12 history to get not only offense but Defensive Player of the Week within the same season. Nobody else has done it, but of course he's the only dude that's out here playing both sides of the ball like he is. So I don't think it's like possible for anybody else to really win it. But another award was given to Isaiah Gustav, who got Newcomer of the Week 22 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. And we talked about this a couple weeks back, the last time you were on, that Colorado's got to establish the run. And it looks like the run game is starting to build up, and Isaiah is becoming that dude. Do you see that as a big plus for Colorado first? And secondly, with Travis Hunter getting this Big 12 Player of the Week award, do you think he can get it for both positions in the same game sometime this season?
Well, he should have got it. Again, this is the Big 12, but he should have got it last year in the Pac-12 for the TCU game. Like that should have happened, right? And I don't know who ended up winning it. Obviously, last year the Pac-12 had Bo Nix and Penix and Caleb Williams and stuff. So I don't remember who else played really well that week, but I assume he should have probably won it last year. In the same week, I don't know. That's gonna be tough, but they play a Utah team that's pretty absolutely desperate for anything good to happen over there.
Yeah,
maybe that could be a week he does it. Maybe on that Friday night when everybody's watching against or actually it's a Friday afternoon, I think, against Oklahoma State. That could be a day that he does it. So we'll see. That'd be a bold prediction, but it obviously super impressive. And I like the way that they're still playing him. I like the way that he's playing on both sides of the ball. On the rushing attack, like even Coach Prime has mentioned that. Coach Prime has said, like, we can sling it with anybody out here in the country, and we got to get the run game going. And he's made no bones about that. And that is something that they need to continue to improve. I think what they had almost 150 yards rushing last game, and it just gives you a little bit more balance to where they're always going to be a pass-heavy team. They've got the best wide receivers in the Big 12 and really maybe top 2 or 3 in the country with some other big-time teams. And so it's always going to be a passing team because of their skills. Like, you're going to play to your strengths. But I do think that it is a big deal that you can just keep the defense off balance a little bit by running the ball more, by having a few more explosive plays in the run game, because then those guys aren't pinning their ears back. We talked about the offensive line earlier. The offensive line has an easier job if the other team doesn't know if you're going to run or pass. And so not only do you want it to slow the game down and give your defense a breather, you also want it because you don't want the defense just saying, hey, we're going to just bull rush every single time. Give them that little pause to see if, it's a run, it's a pass, what Coach Prime and the offense are doing. And so that's a big deal to me too. And so if you can kind of keep the other team off balance, if you can continue to work to give your defense a rest, it is just fully a complementary style of playing football. And, if they pass the ball 75 times a game, they'd probably still find a way to win. But you can make life a little easier on you if you do run the ball more. And Coach Prime has been pretty vocal about that.
That's very true. Coach Prime has been pushing that entire agenda this entire time, so it makes sense. But, hey, when I talk about that in the same week, man, honestly, week 3 might have been the best chance that Travis had. That week, he got Defensive Player of the Week. He had 5 tackles, an interception, and a pass defended. He also had 13 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That might have been his best opportunity to get into the same week, but he's going to have to get a 2-interception game with another 10-catch game in order to get it, but it's still ridiculous that he's doing what he's doing. We're talking to TJ over there at College Football Addiction. Go check him out. He's dropping some great content, especially showing a little love to Colorado and a little realism. He's dropping the truth serum on some of the games. TJ, Colorado's now a top 25 team, ranked 23 in the country. It's probably a long time coming. I kind of thought that he should have probably been moved up a little bit earlier, at least had a little taste of it. Now we've got to talk playoffs. The question now is, with the Big 12 championship, their schedule lines up as this. They've got Texas Tech on the road. They're going to Lubbock next week because this week is a bye. Utah at the house. They travel to Kansas City to play against KU, play against Kansas, and up there at Arrowhead Stadium because the stadium in Lawrence is being redone. And then they wrap the season up at home against Oklahoma State. Do you think Colorado has a chance to finish 10-2 and potentially find a backdoor towards a Big 12 conference berth as well as a playoff berth?
Yeah, so there's not one of those games that I would not pick Colorado in right now. Now, going undefeated in November with all of the expectations is extremely difficult. And I do think that, it is a much different gauntlet to try and, like, November wouldn't be that tough if Colorado was sitting here at like 4-4. It'd still be tough because every week in the Big 12 is tough. But I do think it is much more difficult now that the expectations are, all right, you got to go win every game. And you can't play like this, nobody believes in us, everybody hates us card. They can still probably play like the everybody hates us card because Coach Prime has always kind of, said like, I'm going to show you haters. But so I do think it gets tougher for Colorado due to that. But that said, there's not one game I'd look at on the schedule where I'd say like, they're not the favorite. They shouldn't go win it. Texas Tech probably being the toughest. The one in Kansas probably being second. I really like them against Utah, who's kind of abysmal right now. I really like them against Oklahoma State and playing that game at home too. Could they slip up on any of these? Absolutely. Like any of these games, maybe with the exception of Utah, not, knock on wood, they probably should win that one. And they really should win the last three. So yeah, I think they've got a great chance to go undefeated. Every week will be a battle. It's not like, oh, this is just going to be an easy November by any means. They have to show up and play. If they show up and play the way they played for much of the Kansas State game, the way they played against UCF, the way they played against Arizona, the way they played last week, I think they will go undefeated. I think they can very much get to 10-2. It's kind of I'd say their floor is 8-4. Like their absolute floor is 8-4. What's most likely is probably 9-3, and then I think 10-2 is within reach. If you beat Texas Tech this upcoming week after the bye, I think I'll start to predict 10-2 at that point because I just don't really see like who has the best chance to beat them. As far as getting to the Big 12 championship, they're going to need some help. They're going to need Kansas State to drop another game, and then they're going to need somebody ahead of them, either Iowa State or BYU, to drop another game, and then hope that you get in on a tiebreaker there. Now, BYU drops 2 games. They've got a rivalry game coming up against Utah, the Holy War, after the bye. Again, Utah is not a great team, but it is a rivalry, so you never know. You really need BYU to drop a game, kind of find a way to win a tiebreaker there. You wouldn't win the tiebreaker with BYU because you lost to Kansas State in the head-to-head. So maybe you need Iowa State to drop a game somewhere. They nearly lost to UCF. So all these teams are beatable. You're just going to need a little help. And then again, because you lost the head-to-head with Kansas State, you need them to lose a game somewhere down the stretch. And so you need some help to get into the Big 12 championship. But they do have the 4th best odds right now. If you get some of that help, maybe we'll do that on College Football Addiction. We'll break out kind of like the path to the Big 12 championship, how different teams could qualify. That'd be kind of a fun video to break down and do. But I will say, like, I'm not ready to put them into the Big 12 championship yet because, again, it doesn't depend on them. It depends on what other teams do. As far as the playoff goes, again, the automatic bid would be winning your Big 12 championship. But they are 23rd now. And if they just, by virtue of winning a couple more games, they're probably going to get up into that top 20 if they win their next 2, and they're sitting there at, 8-2 at that point. And then if you're in the top 20, you're starting to have a conversation of like, okay, well, if we win our last 2 and these teams ahead of us are starting to lose because it's just getting later in the year and they're playing against each other, and then you've got teams losing in a conference championship, could Colorado get somewhere around that top 15-ish going into the final polls, the final college football playoff rankings? How will the playoff rankings adjust, and how will they factor Colorado in when that first rankings release is revealed? That's a big question because I do think that it's important to see kind of how they think about Colorado. They don't always look at it the same way the polls do. Just because Colorado's 23rd in the AP doesn't mean they'll be 23rd when the college football playoff committee votes. And so that's really important. It's hard for me to think that Colorado could get to 10-2. And I think if they get to 10-2, they will have won 6 straight games. And so they're playing extremely well. They look like one of the better teams in the country. They have the best player in the country. They have a top 5 quarterback in the country. And they have the most electric, the most must-see coach in the country. Listen, merit or not, the College Football Playoff Committee is going to put in things that are entertaining and make them money and do good things for ratings. Whether you like that or not, it doesn't matter. Like, that is what they are going to do. And so it's hard for me to think that there's not a scenario where a 10-2 Coach Prime coach with maybe the Heisman Trophy winner on it would sneak into the playoff. Like, I think they would like to find a way to get in the playoff. If you're a Colorado fan, there's some chaos you can cheer for. You need teams like Alabama to get their 3rd loss this week at LSU, to get Alabama out of the way. You need things like Tennessee getting another loss at Georgia to probably get them out of the way. So you need to start cheering for some of that chaos to happen so that you can kind of bump your way up and maybe get in that picture. So it's probably still a long shot because they got a lot of ground to make up. But we'll see when that first playoff committee ranking comes out, and then maybe we'll do a series on that over at College Football Addiction once we kind of have a little better idea of what they look like.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be an interesting conversation with all the teams that they need to actually like lose or they need to be knocked off. It's going to be a fun long-term conversation. This is the best part about college football is all of this that's coming down. Chopping up with TJ from College Football Addiction, man. I appreciate you pulling up here on the channel. Let the people know where they can find you and all the great content you're putting together.
Yeah, College Football Addiction here on YouTube. You can search that. On Twitter, it's just my name, TJ Pittenger. Go check it out. A lot of Florida State stuff there, so if that bothers you or annoys you, then maybe just stick to YouTube. But College Football Addiction here. And, Jay, I appreciate you for having me on.
Absolutely, my man. We appreciate you again.